Thanks for joining us here on 90s Plus. I'm Chris Bianchi. Now, there's added evidence that maybe a plant-based Mediterranean diet and also a plant-based diet overall can lead to added health benefits, but be careful with the plant-based part of things. And to kind of break it all down for you, maybe what might be the right diet for you and some things to pursue, we've got 90s medical expert Dr. Payal Kohli here with us. Dr. Kohli, I do feel like we've heard quite a bit about Mediterranean diets being good for us, but maybe there's new evidence that a plant-based diet may be especially good, right?
Yes, Chris. So the Mediterranean diet really came about in the 1950s when scientists and physicians looked at people who lived in Mediterranean countries around the Mediterranean Sea and realized that their risk for cardiovascular disease and other illnesses was lower as compared to other parts of Europe or even here in the United States. And so that's when they really sort of started studying, well, what is it that causes their risk to be lower? And most recently, we have some great data that tells us that it's actually not just the Mediterranean diet, but a Mediterranean lifestyle that really helps your risk to be lower. And there's really sort of three components to that. So the first component is the diet. It's the food part. It's what we put inside of us. And the Mediterranean diet, which kind of emphasizes fruits and vegetables, nuts and legumes. It emphasizes olive oil, healthy fats like avocados, fish, but it de-emphasizes a lot of the sugary drinks, the processed foods, the red meat, a lot of the things that sometimes we like to eat, but that are really not so good for us. So that is one part of the sort of three components is the diet. It's what the Mediterranean people were actually eating.
Okay.
The second part of it was a little bit more of the lifestyle. So it was also like, how do you eat your food? Are you someone who adds salt to your food? Are you someone who snacks frequently? Are you someone who exercises regularly? So that was kind of the second part. And the third part, which I find the most fascinating, is actually, what you're doing while you're eating your food. So are you eating alone in front of your computer or the television or in the car? Or are you actually sitting down with friends and family members? And are you going for walks where you meet friends and family members? Are you sleeping 7 to 9 hours a night? So it looked at a lot of those other factors that really go into our overall health and our healthful behaviors. And looking at all three of these things, it gave people scores. Okay, so these three blocks, how do you score? And what was fascinating was that there was actually a dose-dependent relationship. So the more of each of those blocks that you did, the lower your risk of dying and the lower your risk of dying from cancer. And then, of course, the healthy lifestyle one was much associated with a lower risk of cardiovascular death. So it's pretty clear here. I mean, the secret sauce to living longer, avoiding cancer, and avoiding heart disease is really trying to change our approach, not just to our food, but to our behaviors in general, to our lifestyle, and incorporating the social component as well into what we eat.
But I guess when it comes to diet specifically, we hear plant-based. I do feel like that's something we're hearing more and more about. It's not all plant-based. So, for example, I had McDonald's French fries before I came on the air here. That's actually a true story. I don't often do that, but
and you're admitting this to a cardiologist, Chris?
Yes, I did, and I mean that on a serious note because that obviously that's not great for us, and it's not. You have to be careful what you say and do with plant-based, right?
Yes, and so for the longest time, we've been spreading the message, eat plant-based, but that message somehow became that even plant-based junk food is somehow healthy. So we actually have a recent study that looks at this distinction. It looks at healthy versus unhealthy plant-based. So the healthy is kind of what I mentioned in the Mediterranean, fruits and vegetables, whole grains, nuts and legumes and those types of things. The unhealthy is your McDonald's French fries. It's sometimes what I eat when I go out to a steakhouse or something. It's the mashed potatoes, it's the pasta, it's the sugary drinks, and you're trying to avoid the alcohol, so you end up getting a mocktail, but that's full of sugar as well. So you really, I think, have to remember that just because you're eating something that doesn't have animal products in it doesn't mean it's healthy. And a trap that often plant-based friends of mine fall into is some of the processed foods like the fake meats that are out there. And so if you're eating processed plant-based food, that has a lot of the same risks that processed meat-based food has. It has excess sodium in it. It can raise your triglycerides. It's processed food. Some of it can actually activate bacteria in your gut to create inflammation, TMAO, just like, meat products can do as well. So you think psychologically that you're being healthy, but actually what the studies show us that unhealthy plant-based food increases your risk of dying by 23%, as opposed to healthy plant-based food, which can dramatically lower it. So not all plant-based food is created equal, and not all plant-based food means you have to be exclusive to plant-based. So if you're really enjoy eating meat or fish or lean protein like chicken or turkey, and you want to eat that, that can be part of a holistic plant-based diet. It just means you're emphasizing more of the plant-based with a little bit of those lean proteins.
I guess when it comes to this new study and those specific three components that you talked about with the Mediterranean lifestyle, what you eat, the lifestyle that you lead around, and also what you're doing when you're actually physically eating, is there any idea about which of those three components might be the most important?
Yeah, so they did a weighted score in this where they put the most amount of weight on the food, because food is, our first best medicine, obviously directly impacts us so many different factors in what we're doing. But the other two components, the kind of the lifestyle and other behaviors like snacking and sodium and all that, and then the sleep and who are you eating with, are you meeting your friends, those were actually weighted equally. So what's interesting to me is that we often underemphasize the social component. We know that people who are lonely, people who live alone, people even in fact who don't even have pets, they have a higher risk of many different types of diseases.
Wow.
So we know that your state of mind, your social interactions, your relationships with your friends and family members, all of those can really have a dramatic impact on your health. And I think this study really brought that to the forefront. It really helps to remind us that it's not just the food, but it's how we eat the food, and it's what we're doing while we're eating, but also while we're not eating, how we're sleeping, how we're exercising, whether we're angry, whether we're happy. All of those factors go into determining our health.
And is there something we know about Spanish, Italian, Greek culture, of course, those countries that encompass the Mediterranean, that lends to more of this? Is there something that us as Americans do less than those parts of the world?
It is the social piece of it, I think.
The social piece,
and really
okay.
sitting down around a meal and really emphasizing meal times. So here in the United States, I sometimes feel like, and I'm very much, a part of this problem is that we spend so much time working and immersing ourselves into our work that we sometimes forget that life is really about that balance when it comes to our health, especially. And so if we're eating our breakfast burrito in the car while we're driving to work, that is a whole different experience, not just how you feel while doing it, but also for your body and the nutritional value of what you're eating and how it impacts your body, as opposed to sitting down with friends or family members around a dining table, taking time away from the television, computer, other distractions like your phone, and just being mindful of what you're eating. So I think those European cultures in general do emphasize the kind of the familial aspect, the social aspect of meal times. And here in the US, maybe we do that on the weekends, but during the week we're sort of just go and try to grab lunch where you can.
Yep.
And we're doing a working lunch and, all of the things that we're all sort of party to.
Fascinating anecdotal story. So Gonzalo Bedoya, one of our editors here at 9 News, he's got an 103-year-old grandmother who lives in Barcelona, Spain. Yeah. And he was talking about this with me about an hour before we came on here, and he was saying that his grandmother, I asked him, what do you think has led her to live for so long? He goes, la tranquilidad, the calmness, the tranquilness, and she's just calm basically all the time.
Right.
Is that, I know that's an anecdotal, that's one person, obviously we can't go too far with that, but do you think that it's just a calmer way of life?
That's really what we're saying here. What we're saying here is that, again, it's not just about the food, but it's about the whole approach, the whole lifestyle shift that we as Americans really need to try to embrace, because it's not just that it reduces your risk of having high blood pressure, but it changes your longevity. It changes how long you live. So we're actually whittling away our lifespan with some of these lifestyle choices that we're making and some of the work culture that we have. And I think, in our defense, we've made some progress. Whether it's in the medical profession or out there, we really have sort of started emphasizing the self-care aspect of it. But I can't say it enough that, a part of a healthy lifestyle is not just the food we put inside our body, but just our approach to life in general. And the more that we can do to reprogram our own brains, the more that'll emanate sort of outwards into others. So rather than waiting for the society to make the change and then you adapt, you become the change that you want to see.
It's kind of interesting to what you were saying, where our society has made big changes, that this is, again, partially anecdotal here, but I think there's real science behind this. About 5 years ago, before COVID, it felt like working 50, 60, 70 hours a week was a badge of honor, and that is becoming less and less the case now. Now it's more mental health is being highly emphasized more and more, it feels like, by the day here in America, and I think across the world. And again, I think there is a transition, isn't there, from working hard, and that's, again, a badge of honor, to chill out and enjoy your life a bit, right?
Yes, very much so. I would say it's a pendulum, and we were on this side. Now, we don't want to go on this side either, because I think we want to continue to maintain our productivity and, be valuable members of our community and encourage our kids to do the same. But I think if we brought it to that middle, where it was really that, there are two aspects of every human being. There is their work life, and then there's their personal life, and they have to be in perfect harmony. When either one sort of takes over the other, I think it can create disarray, and it can create stress inside the body, raise your cortisol, which can lead to all sorts of downstream effects on your blood pressure, on your blood sugar, weight gain, lack of sleep, all the different things that would make us not just live better, but also feel better on a day-to-day basis.
I'll just say this as well, and I feel like over the years, a lot of us have heard about keto diets, Atkins diets, paleo diets. Is there more and more evidence pointing to specifically that the Mediterranean diet may be above those, or am I misreading into this?
No, in fact, there is very clear randomized evidence, which is why the American Heart Association has put the Mediterranean diet into life's essential 8. If you do these 8 things, you will reduce your risk of having a stroke or heart attack by 80%. And I want you to calculate your own life's essential 8 score after we're done here, because you put in all the things that you do, and then it spits out for you exactly what you need to work on. But the idea here is that Mediterranean diet can really impact your weight, your blood pressure, your cholesterol, your sugar, so many different variables that lead to your cardiometabolic health, that it can dramatically reduce cardiovascular disease, morbidity, and mortality. So it is one of the few diets that we're really hanging our hat on and saying this will lead to less heart attacks, less strokes, and less risk of dying from heart disease. Now, the other diet that does that is called the DASH diet, which is the dietary approaches to stop hypertension. That's for patients who are prone to high blood pressure. It's a sodium-restricted diet, where you're really watching how much sodium you're eating, and again, emphasizing those potassium-rich foods like fruits and vegetables that help your body pee out that sodium to help reduce your blood pressure. That's the other diet that has outcomes benefit, actually reduces heart attacks, strokes, and heart disease. All the rest of the stuff, those are fads. And some of those fats can actually be dangerous on your body, like a very high protein diet can tax your kidneys a little bit. And that keto diet helps you lose a lot of weight because you're loading up on dense animal products like meat and such. So in the short term, it's really good for weight loss. But in the long term, it can cause a lot of aberrations with your triglycerides, your insulin regulation. Some of that weight you can help gain back, and it's very difficult to sustain in the long term. You can get nutritional deficiencies. You can get, problems with bowel movements because you have very little fiber in your diet and the vitamins are not there. So there's just a whole host of things that I don't recommend for those fad diets. Really Mediterranean or DASH if you're prone to high blood pressure.
So for those of you who might, for those of our audience who might not be familiar with the Mediterranean or the DASH diets, what's a good starting point? Is there a good place to kind of start things off to get to know a bit more about it?
The American Heart Association. Okay. Go to the AHA website, and they have a whole host of resources how you can design it. And what I really love about these diets is the flexibility. They're not restrictive. They're not like you have to count things all day long. They're not like you have to do. They basically just teach you how to make a plate. And every plate should have half fruits and vegetables, a quarter some sort of lean protein, chicken, fish, tofu, those types of things, and then a quarter should be a whole grain. And if you make breakfast, lunch, and dinner with that in mind, you eat real food, not a lot of it, not a lot of snacking or added sodium, and you stay away from the sugary drinks and the McDonald's French fries, then you're on your way to heart health, Chris.
All right. I mean, I will say, for me, it's a once in 6 months one-off, but I'm swearing out those McDonald's French fries.
And the candy, too. I'll throw that in there, too.
I like candy. I really like it. Why does it have to taste so good, Dr. Kohli? Is there a reason behind that?
So you know what I would do when you get that little sweet tooth itch? You get some plain yogurt, and you put some strawberries and other berries in it, and just make a fresh yogurt parfait for yourself. And you scratch that little sweet tooth itch, and you stay away from that processed candy.
Okay. No candy, kids. That's myself included. But Dr. Kohli, thanks so much for joining us and lending us a bit more of your expertise about this. Thank you.